injuries throughout his career, including a shoulder surgery that kept him out the entire 2015 season and made him very limited in 2016. And I feel the fact that he's also not a pitcher who throws very hard. He's a finesse type pitcher, throws just under 91 miles per hour on his fastball, but does have above average pitches in his curveball, cutter, and of course his changeup, which is his wipeout pitch. So there are definitely concerns, but at the same time, you got to look at the upside about this. I mean, we heard so long Blue Jays fans complaining about waiting and seeing and not cashing out and spending for a top-notch free agent. Well, you got your wish, Blue Jays fans. They brought in a guy who's not only a guy who can pitch respectable big league innings, but a building block for the future. And that's why he's here. He's here for the next 4 years. And with Nate Pearson's debut on the horizon, and I was thinking last night, the Tanner Roark move makes a lot more sense now, because now you have a legitimate back-end starter who can give you innings. The rotation is looking a whole lot more respectable, especially with Shoemaker coming back, Chase Anderson in the mix, Borucki primed to have a bounce-back season. I mean, we'll talk about how we think the Blue Jays will contend in 2020 if they have a chance at contending. But I got to tell you, the rotation, is it ridiculous to suggest that the rotation is no longer just solid? It could be, potentially a source of stability. Everything sort of seems to break right by the end of 2020.
I think, this team could look extreme. The rotation, was 2016, the Jays had one of the best rotations in baseball, which propelled them to the playoffs. That's really what happened that year. And they have the potential, and that word is very tricky to go off of, but they have the potential of having an incredibly good starting rotation. Because who knows? Tanner Roark could turn back the clock to a few years ago where he was incredible with the Nationals. Chase Anderson had a really good year with the Brewers. Could he turn it around? The question I have now is, and I think it's going to be the entertaining part of spring training, and usually spring training is not really very entertaining, but this year it's going to be extremely fun to watch because of the starting rotation battles. I mean, we could sit here and probably name off 8 or 9 guys, maybe even more, that probably deserve a spot in the rotation, but won't get the opportunity because of the numbers game. And Rob, you mentioned a few of the names there. Ryu, Shoemaker, Roark, Chase Anderson. That's 4 of 5 starters right there. What happened to Borucki, Trent Thornton, Nate Pearson, Anthony Kay, Jacob Waguespack, Yamaguchi they just picked up. So the rotation, the number of players is incredible. And I'm just excited to see the battle that they're going to have to figure out who the 1 to 5 starters are. And I don't think we're going to see many openers this season. I think we can all agree on that the opener maybe one or 2 times this year, but I don't think it's going to be as prominent as it was last season because the amount of starters and the amount of depth this rotation is going to have this season. And like you said, man, I mean, they have the potential of being great, but it's all a wait and see game, and it's going to be really exciting to see how this team plays out and how spring training kind of rolls around here in the coming months, because it's not as far away as people make it out to be.
Yeah, and as great as Wilmer Font was as an opener for the Blue Jays, I feel like that era has been passed, and now it's an era where the Jays are comfortable with their rotation, and they have more than just depth. And in his post-season conference, Ross Atkins stated that it's not just good enough to have depth, we need more than depth. And right now, the AAA Buffalo rotation is looking like Anthony Kay, TJ Zoik, Nate Pearson, Julian Merriweather, Yenji Diaz, Andrew Sopko, and John Harrison. That is a very strong AAA Buffalo rotation. And just in AA, we'll have guys like Hector Perez, Thomas Hatch, Joey Murray, Patrick Murphy, Maximo Castillo. So it's going to be looking very great. And Shun Yamaguchi, who we thought could have been like a 3rd starter for the team last week, is now poised to be the 7th starter in the depth, as Trent Thornton is the 6th and Ryan Borucki is the 5th. So as Rob, you mentioned that this rotation has a chance to be very great and has a chance to really fool people. And I feel like if they play their cards right and everything goes right, as James said, if Tanner Roark dials it back to his years in Washington and Chase Anderson dials it back a few notches, this rotation can be really good and could compete in the AL East, where it's a hitter-friendly ballpark. So it's going to be a very good, fun spring training to watch, as James mentioned, to see all the competitions between Brian Borucki, Trent Thornton, to see if Jacob Waguespack can fit himself into the mold. And hey guys, it's we have a lot of depth, and we should be happy right now. There's no more Edwin Jackson, Ryan Fairbairn going to start for us anymore.
Absolutely. You should absolutely be very excited about this move if you're a Blue Jays fan. And I'm just glad for the reason that I feel like a lot of people who have hated on this front office, and no matter what they do, they always have a red target painted on their back because it's easy to hate on someone they don't already like. I feel like this move might have shut a lot of people up. And, regardless, we don't know. Hyun-Jin Ryu has never pitched a pitch for the Toronto Blue Jays yet. Who knows how his career with the Blue Jays will turn out? Who knows how this move will look in a few years from now? But at the end of the day, the Blue Jays did exactly what the fans wanted, and that's spend for, a guy who coming into this offseason was probably, the third most highly touted pitcher in this free agent class. I mean, you look at the names. Garrett Cole, who, was he even really on the market considering that he pretty much, was a Yankee the day after the World Series ended? You have Steven Strasburg, who re-signed with Washington. So Hyun-Jin Ryu is one of the top-notch names on this market, and the Blue Jays snagged him. I feel like that's an absolute win there. They've also brought in a bunch of other guys that we talked about, like Roark, like Chase Anderson, who can pitch big league innings. I feel that their biggest weakness going into the offseason was starting pitching, and they obviously addressed that very effectively this offseason. And hopefully it pays dividends once the season rolls around. But now we're sort of going to go into a question that we've gotten very often on this podcast. And pretty much every mailbag, we got this question a few times, and poor Mo had to skim over them so many times because it just got so repetitive to the point where it was pretty much scripted. But I'm going to ask it again now, and I feel like now it's a lot more interesting to talk about. Given this current roster, and there's still trades to be made, potential trades to be made, potential signings left, injuries, spring training that got to be clarified. But given this potential roster, how good do you feel about their chances in competing for a wild card spot in 2020?
I'm a diehard Jays fan, as we all are here, but if I'm speaking realistically, I would say it's so hard to tell, but I would say that the Jays are not going to be a wild card team this year. They might contend for a wild card spot, but in my personal opinion, I don't think they are. Just for this fact only. Now, hear me out. All right. So you look at teams like the Chicago White Sox, and they've improved immensely over the offseason. And look at the teams they got to play. You got to play Detroit. You got to play Kansas City a ton. And who do the Jays got to play? A ton. The Red Sox, the Rays, and the New York Yankees. I understand. Look, it's hard to go off of that. And really, we don't know what this Jays team's going to look like. We're all banking on Vladdy, Bo, Kevin Beach, all these young guys who played last season to improve. That doesn't always happen. Look at a guy like Rowdy Tellez. Had a great, month of September when he got called up. Everyone's like, wow, this is our first baseman. Smokey leaves. Everything's great. And then he has a really rough season last year. Strikes out a ton. Hit the home run, which is great, but we're used to seeing that. And, we're all talking about, signing Edwin back or now Travis Shaw replacing Rowdy or at least splitting time with him. So we don't know what Vladdy, Bo, and Kevin Beach are going to do this season. We're all hoping and expecting them to grow, but we don't know. And if you look at a team like the White Sox, there's a lot of other teams that are kind of selling off, like Cleveland and stuff like that. But I think they're going to battle for a wild card spot. Do I think with the roster they have right now, do I think that they're going to be able to be a wild card team? I think not. Just for the fact of there's still bullpen question marks, as well as am I confident with the outfield kind of staying this way it was? I'm not 100% sure about that. Now, obviously, that's not going to change throughout the offseason. That's pretty much, I think Atkins or Shapiro even really said that they were kind of going into this year with that in mind. But do I think that they've gotten substantially better throughout the offseason so far? No doubt about it. I think they could contend. Could they surprise me and be a wild card team? Absolutely. But in my opinion, right now, without seeing this team play a game, I don't see them as a wild card team just yet. But they could surprise us all. So I want to hear your guys' takes. What do you think, Mo?
I agree with everything you just said. Sure, 100% they're going to be better than last year. And honestly, I feel like they're going to be playing meaningful baseball in August and possibly even September. But I think they're still on the fringe of being a wild card contender. Sure, they can surprise us all, But right now, I feel like the Jays are missing one just major bat in the lineup in the bottom of the order. Right now, Derek Fisher is slated to become our everyday left fielder, and that for me just doesn't cut it at all. We need another powerful guy in the bottom of the order who can turn it up and turn it around to the top of the order. Maybe a Corey Dickerson who can be down there, who can hit for nearly 300. But I just feel like the Jays are missing just one more impact player on the position side for them to be contenders and take to the next level. And obviously we're going to need bounce back years from Teoscar Hernandez, a better overall year from Randal Grichuk. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is definitely going to help. Bo Bichette, a full season from him is definitely going to help. Kevin Biggio, we know what he can do. Danny Jansen's probably going to improve. So if everything goes right, I feel like they definitely could be playing meaningful August baseball. And hey guys, Jays fans, if you're listening, we need a dose of reality. Sure, the rotation has improved, yes, for sure. But it's debatably still the fourth best rotation in the AL East right now before Nate Pearson comes. So if Nate Pearson could come up, hurry up, and he could definitely make up a lot of ground for them if he does deal from the jump. But right now, they're definitely not the best rotation in the AL East. Sure, that can change if everything goes right, but certainly a lot of things have to go right in order for the Jays to become a wild card contender next season.
Yeah, I honestly, I shouldn't even be rambling on because you guys pretty much hit the nail right on the head. Could not have said it better myself. There's a whole lot of question marks, and after Ryu, especially in the rotation, while it may have been solid, the floor was so low last year that anything sort of looks somewhat respectable now. I mean, you're looking at the rotation. Nate Pearson hasn't yet to pitch a major league pitch yet. Who knows how that might turn out in his rookie year. Tanner Roark and Chase Anderson are solid, but they're not, they're decent big league starters. They're not guys who you'd be comfortable, let's say game 3 ALDS, here, take the ball and win us the game. They're still, I guess, a withdraw talent in the rotation as of now. Have they become more respectable? There's no question about that. But in terms of the overall talent to contend for a playoff spot, there's definitely huge question marks there. As for the offense, I do feel that the ceiling is good enough to be a high-power offense and a team that can hit the ball all over the yard. But, again, Vladdy, Bo, Kevin Biggio, there's just not a whole lot of experience there to, be all that confident about. Because, you should totally be confident about their chances, but there's definitely a lot of question marks there. They've yet to prove it yet. Consistently, because they just haven't had a whole lot of opportunities yet. And Bo Bichette, a guy who came, flying high ever since he got called up to the big leagues, we're still waiting for that, that inevitable slump that's going to happen. Eventually, you're going to have to adjust to the pitchers. It's not going to be, hitting 900 plus OPS, 300 plus batting average for the rest of his career. There are going to be some slumps that he's going to, encounter for the first time, and that's what we saw from Vladdy this year as well. So I'd say I wouldn't bet a lot of money on it, but honestly, the ceiling that they can reach, I do feel like it's good enough to at least contend, even in the AL East. But those are our takes about it. And right now, let's sort of move on a little bit from the Ryu signing. He wasn't the only signing that the Jays made on early Sunday morning. We got an update that the Blue Jays had come to terms with Travis Shaw, who spent last season with the Milwaukee Brewers. He's a corner infielder, also DH, has AL East experience. We briefly touched upon him on the last podcast. He was signed to a 1-year, $4 million deal. And you look at his numbers overall for the 2019 season, obviously very terrible because he was injured the entire season, so that's pretty much a write-off. It doesn't look pretty, but I do feel like he's a guy who can help the team when healthy because he does fill in some needs. Being a lefty, you can play third base, play first base. I feel like he's a guy who can definitely help the Blue Jays in 2019, in 2020. What are your thoughts?
I think no doubt Travis Shaw, I think, is going to be a great pickup team. Just for there's lots of different factors to take from this. For one, it's a 1-year deal at $4 million. Okay, let's say he sucks complete rear end. You're signing a 1-year, $4 million contract. Is it really going to bite you in the butt? Not really at all. That's the worst case scenario. And Travis Shaw is also a guy who can play some third base, if need be. He can play first base, and he can DH. Pretty much everybody can DH at this point. But having that guy at first base, in the last podcast, we talked about a few different names out there. that we would possibly like to see on this team, and Travis Shaw was obviously one of them. And I think it's going to be a great signing. Obviously, like you said, injury-plagued season last season, and when he was healthy, wasn't very effective. But you look at the years prior to that. I mean, he had, 31 and 32 home runs, and he had 86 and